Alex, I spent the first 10 years of my life as a maker basically living inside a flour mill. Everything I owned, my truck, my dog, my eyebrows, was coated in a fine layer of white oak silt. I used to think a clean shop was just a myth people told to sell magazines.
I've seen the photos, Tiger. You looked like a Victorian ghost who'd lost a fight with a bag of powdered sugar. But honestly, for most of us starting out, dust collection feels like the adulting of woodworking. It's expensive, it's loud, and it doesn't actually help you cut a straighter tenon.
It's the least sexy part of the craft, no doubt. It's hard to get your pulse jumping over a plastic hose when there's a new Japanese handsaw calling your name. But here's the cold truth. That fine stuff you can't even see, the 10-micron ghosts, they stay airborne for 30 minutes or more after the tool stops. While you're sitting there admiring your work, you're breathing in a desert storm.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Because just buy a shop vac is the advice everyone gets, but it's rarely the whole story.
Most folks start with the shop vac because it's the gateway drug of suction. And for a sander or a biscuit joiner, it's the king. It's got static pressure, which is just a fancy way of saying it's got a lot of tug through a tiny straw. But you try to hook that up to a 13-inch thickness planer, it's like trying to drain a swimming pool with a cocktail stirrer.
I remember the first time I tried that, I thought the vacuum was broken. It filled up in about 4 seconds, and the filter looked like it had been dipped in concrete.
We've all been there. The shop vac is built for high pressure, low volume. A planer or a table saw needs high volume, low pressure. Those machines are throwing out shovels of wood at a time. You need a big 4-inch pipe and a motor that moves a hurricane's worth of air, not just a sharp whistle of a breeze. If you are going to stick with the vac for a while, though, you've got to stop feeding it directly. You need a middleman.
The cyclone separator. I've seen those, the little plastic buckets that look like a science fair project. Do they actually do anything, or is it just more shop jewelry?
It's the best $20 you'll ever spend. It uses centrifugal force to spin the heavy chips into a bucket before they ever touch your vacuum's filter. I used to have to bang out my vacuum filter every 20 minutes. Now, I check the filter maybe once a season. It's the difference between a tool that works and a tool that's just a glorified paperweight.
Okay, so the vac is for the small stuff. But the big question for the Tiger Den community is always, when do I jump to an actual dust collector? You know, the big bags, the heavy induction motors.
It's about the machines you're running. If you've graduated to a stationary jointer or a cabinet saw, you're officially in the Big Air Club. Those machines have 4-inch ports for a reason.
And that's where people get intimidated. I look at those 2-horsepower units, and all I see is a wiring nightmare. Most of those need 220 volts, right?
A lot of the heavy hitters do. And that's a real hurdle. If you're working out of a rented garage with one circuit that trips if you look at the toaster wrong, a 220-volt cyclone isn't in the cards. But you can get a 1-horse mobile unit that plugs into a standard 110 outlet. It won't pull the chrome off a bumper, but it'll keep your lungs clear.
Let's talk about the bags of shame. You know the ones, those white canvas bags that come on the cheap collectors? You always say they're basically just oversized pepper shakers.
Oh, they're worse than that. Those standard 30-micron bags are just dust relocators. They catch the big chips so you don't trip over them, but they let the fine, invisible flour right back out into the room. If you're going to buy a collector, you have to look for a pleated canister filter. It has 10 times the surface area and catches the stuff that actually hurts your chest. If your collector has a bag that puffs up like a marshmallow when you turn it on, you're just circulating the poison.
So the vac for the sander, the big collector for the planer. Why do we need the box hanging from the ceiling? Is that just for the aesthetic?
That's your ambient air cleaner. Think of it as the safety net. No dust collection system is 100% efficient. Some chips are always going to make a break for it. That ceiling unit is there to scrub the room 3 or 4 times an hour. I leave mine running for 20 minutes after I walk out of the shop. It's the reason I can come back the next morning and not have a layer of gray fur on my coffee mug.
I've noticed you're also pretty religious about the mask, even with all this gear running. Isn't that overkill?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But one afternoon spent coughing up walnut dust will change your religion real quick, especially with woods like spalted maple or cocobolo. Those aren't just irritating, they're toxic. I treat the mask like my safety glasses. It goes on before the power switch flips.
I think a lot of beginners get stuck on the all-or-nothing mentality. They think if they can't afford a $2,000 Clearview cyclone system with hard-piped ducting, there's no point.
That's the trap. My first system was a shop vac taped to a bucket with a hole in the lid and a $10 box fan with a furnace filter duct taped to the back of it. It looked like a junkyard dog, but it kept the worst of the fog at bay. You don't need a professional HVAC setup to start. You just need to realize that the shop isn't a clean room, it's a battlefield, and you're just trying to keep the enemy out of your windpipe.
What about the common mistakes? I've seen people use PVC pipe for their lines and then have people on the internet scream at them about static explosions. Is that a real thing or is it just hobbyist folklore?
Ah, the great PVC debate. Look, in a massive industrial grain silo, static discharge is a bomb. In a hobbyist garage with a 4-foot run of pipe, it's mostly just a way to get a nasty zap on the elbow that'll make you drop your chisel. But the real mistake isn't the material, it's the corners.
The corners?
People use 90-degree elbows like they're plumbing a sink. Air hates sharp turns. Every time you make a 90-degree bend, you're killing your suction. You want long, sweeping curves. 2 45-degree elbows with a little straight pipe between them will outperform a single T-junction every day of the week. Air's got momentum. You can't just tell it to take a hard left and expect it to be happy about it.
Okay, let's talk about the shop vac versus extractor debate. Because those Festool or Makita extractors cost more than my first car. Are they just fancy vacuums for people with too much money?
Don't tell the tool companies I said this, but they are mostly just very quiet, very smart shop vacs. The smart part is the tool-actuated switch. You plug your sander into the vacuum, then you plug the vacuum into the wall. When you pull the trigger on the sander, the vacuum wakes up. When you stop, the vacuum runs for 5 seconds more to clear the hose and then goes back to sleep.
I will admit, that sounds incredibly satisfying.
It's a luxury that becomes a necessity once you have it. It's not about the power, it's about the friction. If you have to walk over and flip a switch every time you want to make a 30-second cut, eventually you're going to get lazy. You're going to say, it's just one cut. And that's how the dust wins. The best system is the one that requires the least amount of willpower to use.
That's probably the most Tiger thing you've ever said.
Well, I'm a lazy man who likes to breathe. It's a powerful combination. Another thing people miss is the source. You can have the biggest vacuum in the world, but if the inside of your table saw is shaped like a cavern with a tiny hole at the bottom, 40% of that dust is just going to settle in the corners of the cabinet. Sometimes the best upgrade isn't a new collector. It's a piece of cardboard and some tape inside your machine to funnel the chips directly into the pipe.
So it's about shaping the airflow before it even gets to the hose.
Exactly. Dust collection is like a conversation. You have to listen to where the machine wants to throw the chips. My old band saw used to spit dust right in my face until I realized the port was poorly placed. I spent 10 minutes building a little wooden shroud around the lower blade guides, and it was like night and day. Cost me $0 and saved me a lot of sneezing.
We've covered a lot of ground. If you're a beginner listening to this and you've got $200 and a dream, what's the hierarchy of needs?
First, a decent respirator that fits your face. Not the paper ones that make your glasses fog up, something with a rubber seal. Second, a shop vac with a HEPA filter. Third, a cyclone separator. That trio will handle 90% of what a small hobby shop throws at you.
And the big boys, the 2 HP cyclones and the hard pipe ducting?
Save that for when you're tired of dragging the vacuum around. It's a phase 2 problem. Don't let the lack of a perfect system stop you from making sawdust. Just make sure you're managing the cloud while you're at it.
I think my favorite part of all this isn't even the health stuff, it's the ritual. There's something peaceful about a clean shop floor at the end of a project.
It's the final amen of the build. When the dust is gone, you can actually see what you made. You aren't fighting the clutter anymore. You're just there with the wood.
That was surprisingly poetic, Tiger. Who are you, and what have you done with the man who once accidentally glued his sleeve to a workbench?
Hey, that glue had great hold. But seriously, if there's one thing to take away today, it's this. Dust collection isn't about the gear, it's about respect. Respecting your tools, your space, and most importantly, the lungs that let you keep doing this into your 80s.
Well said. I'll go turn on the air scrubber.
Good call. I think I can still see some of your Victorian ghost particles from earlier.